Hey everyone, SweetJohnnyCage here, back with another guide for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This time I'm going to show you how to complete all of the Cactuar Crush minigames on hard difficulty in the Corel region. These unlock once you complete all 4 Phenomenon Intel missions on normal difficulty, which is fairly easy to do. If you are still wondering how do I complete the ones on normal, they haven't all unlocked yet. The final 2 become available once you reach Corel. I believe it's during Chapter 11 or Chapter 12. It's at the end of the game. They will become available in a very obvious way. So if you haven't reached towards the end of the game, just keep playing and you'll get there. Okay, for the first Cactuar Crush on hard mode, this one is done with Yuffie. We are going to be implementing her Brumal Form ability. So I'll re-explain the mechanics from the normal mode. They'll all be coming in handy. Basically, if you throw out Yuffie's Shuriken and then hold square, you will not only retrieve the Shuriken, but it will drag everything back to you in a windstorm of sorts, and that does deal magic damage, so keep that in mind. This Gigantuar, we need to deal a lot of damage as quickly as possible throughout this entire challenge, and the Gigantuars are here to slow us down. So having a Doppelganger out during this fight is a really good idea, and part of the reason for that is because if your Shuriken is out and you get knocked down, the Doppelganger Shuriken will stay out, and this is really, really helpful. Shooting Star is also incredibly helpful. It will just send a Shuriken out constantly, and it will constantly follow enemies and deal a ton of damage. Mix this in with a Doppelganger, and you have 2 Shooting Stars, 2 auto attacks, 2 abilities of everything you're doing. So once the Doppelganger is out, once the Shooting Star is out, now you can begin casting Art of War, and then Supreme Art of War is the follow-up if you cast it twice in a row. Really effective. The other hidden mechanic with Yuffie is when you throw the Shuriken out and cast Windstorm, that counts as physical damage. If you just cast Windstorm on Yuffie herself without having the Shuriken out, that counts as magic damage. So when the Shuriken is out, it's physical. When the Shuriken is not out, it's magic damage. Keep that in mind, and you'll be able to chew through these giant waves no problem. As you saw in the beginning of there, that first gold Gigantuar, that was the real problem, child. But now that we're through that, we're going to have a much easier time. Okay, so now that we have the Giftwars down, it's time to deal with 2 magical Gigantuars. We need to deal as much AoE magic damage as possible. Avoid the body slams as best you can, and always focus on the one that has just body slammed. Unfortunately, Yuffie doesn't have many ATB abilities that cause magic damage. However, as you saw there, Brumal Form is really effective against Gigantuars. The way Brumal Form works is every time you spend ATB, that ATB is credited towards Brumal Form, and after you cast 6 abilities that cost ATB, you have a fully charged Brumal Form, and it will do a massive, massive amount of damage. So, don't use Brumal Form unless it is fully charged, and you basically want to save it for those Gigantuars. Basically, everyone after the first one, we're going to be using Brumal Form more or less on them. When the Doppelganger runs out, you want to make sure you recast it, because all that extra damage is really, really helpful. So as you see here, I have a Doppelganger out, my Shuriken's out, the Doppelganger Shuriken is out, and we're just able to cause mass chaos and deal tons and tons of damage to all these Cactuars. So again, when the Shuriken is out and you cast Windstorm, it's physical damage, very, very effective against both Gold Cactuars and Gladiators, the green ones. And then if the Shuriken is not out, you are able to just deal magic damage by casting Windstorm. We now have 2 pugilistic Gigantuars. Watch out for both Earthquake and Body Slam. They are very hard to keep track of while everything is moving around. And then you also have these Giftwars. I'm really not focusing on the Giftwars. I'm just hoping that my AoE damage will take care of them, just like that. Managed to kill it with some ninjutsu, even though ninjutsu is technically weak against the green Cactuars and the gold ones. Still enough to deal that AoE damage to get the Giftwar down, and I don't even have to focus on it. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're basically just waiting for Body Slam, because that's when we're able to deal the vast majority of damage to Gigantuars. Earthquake went off. I didn't even realize that. It just sort of went off, and I didn't take any damage. Unfortunately, it took quite a while to cast Body Slam. This challenge in particular is going to come down to the wire, more or less. I attempted to kill it with a Windstorm. I really should have done some physical damage, but luckily I'm able to kill these Giftwars using ninjutsu really fast. And then we have a really big group of mixed Magitoirs and regular Cactuars, so just casting a Windstorm to bring them all in together, kill all of the green Cactuars and the gold Cactuars, and then we can worry about the Magitoirs. Although thanks to the Doppelganger, they also go down because of all of just the raw AoE damage that's going on. It's keeping them all grouped together, and then we're able to kill them all really quickly. Even though we're technically casting the wrong ability, it's dealing so much damage between the Doppelganger and the Doppelganger's Windstorm that we're doing okay. All right, so here we go. We're going to cast yet another level 3 Banishment on this Gigantoir. Unfortunately, it's going to miss because I was targeting the wrong thing. Flashbacks to soldier training in Remake Intergrade. Yuffie's targeting system can get a little nuts and a little stupid, so just pay very close attention to what you are casting things on. That is basically the reason that this final wave of 3 Gigantoirs is taking so long. I wasted my Banishment, more or less, so for this Gigantoir, I'm doing my best to just kill it using Art of War, but the gold one's Body Slam unfortunately interrupted me, and now it's going to take even longer. However, we got kind of lucky there. The targeting went a little silly there. I don't know why it changed. I don't feel like that was my fault, but we're focusing again on the gold Gigantoir, doing our best to bring it down as quickly as possible. Art of War is really effective. Unfortunately, it's moving around, so some of our hits are missing. Getting out of the way of these body slams is really important. I frankly have no idea how I just dodged that. What I'm attempting to do here is just build up enough ATB as quickly as possible to cast one final Banishment. You can see here I didn't cast all 6 abilities, but thanks to the Doppelganger, it does go off in time. So the reason I didn't redo this and make it a bit more clean is because I wanted to show you that yes, Yuffie's targeting system is pretty wonky, but as long as you react quickly enough and you keep that Doppelganger out, you should be okay and you should be able to get it done in time. The second challenge is with Aerith. These are Don Corneo's Cactuars. The first wave is Light-Tuar, so go ahead and cast a Luminous Ward as quickly as you can and start dealing damage to them. There's no new mechanics that you need to learn with Aerith for hard mode. Everything is basically the same. Luckily, taking a hit without a score does not cause your score to go into the negatives, so I got a little lucky there, but this first wave affinity switches like crazy on me. They also cast Spine Spew, which is really annoying, and then luckily though, because I ran away from them, I could just cast a ward here, and then I'm going to end up right in the middle of the next wave, as you can see here. So I'm just going to cast a Shadow Ward, and then immediately do a Sorcerer's Storm to try to kill all of the Dark Tuars as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, a lot of them were on the edge of that, but because these are only 10-point Cactuars, I was able to deal basically one-shot magic damage to them all, no problem. With this gold Gigantoir, we are more or less just waiting for Body Slam, and then we're going to cast Soul Drain. Again, that's Aerith's best single target ability. I mentioned this in the normal mode guide. It's really good against the final boss, so keep that in mind as you play through the game, and keep it in mind for the final boss. That ability rocks. Okay, so unfortunately we weren't able to kill it right away, so we're basically just going to have to pepper it with spells. The reason that I'm staying in the ward to deal magic damage is because magic damage can follow enemies a lot better than physical damage can. The butterflies that fly out tend to hit their target 99% of the time. Unfortunately, these Cactuars can move really fast. That can be pretty frustrating, but dealing magic damage to the Gigantoirs really is the way to go. Even if they are the green kind or the gold kind, it's just you're better off doing it this way. You can build that ATB faster. You don't build ATB when you're missing physical attacks, and so having the higher rate of damage on the magic attacks is still more effective. Watch out for any of the Cactuars casting Tackle. Do your best to keep moving that affinity back and forth. Spine Spew is really frustrating. I've said this before, but when you reach the target score, feel free to just run away, and I am going to do that on one of these challenges with Aerith, because she's so slow that she tends to take a lot of damage, and you don't really get close to that true maximum score, as you will with Yuffie maybe. So don't be afraid to just run away if you'd like. Whenever a Gigantoir goes down, try to build up ATB as quickly as possible, because you want to cast Soul Drain as quickly as possible. It does have a travel time. You have to keep that in mind. It is not a hit scan ability. I thought it was for a long time, but these Cactuars proved otherwise. Watch out for any body slams. It's hard to keep track of when that ability is actually being cast by the Cactuars. Also, I'm sort of reminding you to do what I'm not doing. Pay very close attention to your ATB. You don't want to waste any ATB throughout these challenges. And what I mean by that is if you have 2 stacks of ATB, spend it as soon as you're able to spend it because you want to start building another stack. Otherwise, you're wasting the ATB and you're literally wasting time off the clock. So having very, very efficient usage of your ATB charges is really, really important during these challenges. You saw in the previous one, I basically finished with like 0.03 seconds left because I mistargeted a banishment with Yuffie. It's basically the same concept. You got to be very, very diligent with what you're doing. Okay, so these Dark Cactuars, unfortunately, are moving pretty far, and that's causing a really long travel time for the butterflies of Aerith's magic attacks. You see there, they can miss occasionally, so you got to be very, very careful with where you're going with those. For the Giftwars, I always recommend just using magic. This way they all die pretty quick. Whenever you have these mixed spawns, what you should do there when it's both Light Twars and Dark Twars or any sort of big combination, try to assess which ones are most prevalent in a closer area and then try to get in the middle of them, cast the corresponding ward, and immediately cast Sorcerer's Storm. Watch out for this Gigantor. It does tend to body slam when you don't want it to, and it will body slam when you are about to cast something, I find. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the charged auto attack with Aerith in an attempt to build ATB quicker. It's not necessarily quicker, especially if that ATB ability is missing all the time, but if you have a Gigantor that is laying on the ground, feel free to cast that and then use that for a Sorcerer's Storm if you have more mini Cactuars up. Otherwise, I would recommend just pressing square over and over. That tends to build ATB faster than that charged auto attack, just because that charged auto attack can miss when you have enemies that are moving around really quick. So you see here, I had over 6,000 points, but I got hit by a Spine Spew, and so now I'm below it. So I just got to 6180, and what I'm doing now is I'm avoiding everything because I do not want to go back below 6,000. It happened to me several times, and that's when I decided, you know what? I've hit 6,000. I'm running away. Don't be afraid to just run once you hit the cap. It's not worth tempting fate just in an attempt to hit a high score. So luckily, the third challenge with Yuffie does not introduce any brand new mechanics, but we do still have to move very quickly and utilize everything we've learned so far. If you just skipped to this challenge because you need help on this particular one and you didn't watch the first challenge and my explanation for that, I'll explain things again. Basically, if you throw Yuffie's shuriken out and then hold square down, she will retrieve the shuriken by pulling it back toward her and ripping everything in its path back to you. This counts as magic damage as well. Casting Doppelganger increases all the damage that you're doing, as the Doppelganger always mimics your attacks. The other thing that I will mention is casting Windstorm without having the shuriken out counts as magic damage because it's just moving around Yuffie and not the weapon. However, if you were to throw the shuriken and cast Windstorm on whatever enemy the shuriken is around, that counts as physical damage, as you're about to see here. So that's really effective against green Cactuars, against orange Cactuars, or any other magical color of Cactuar. You want to deal magic damage, so using a raw Windstorm is really effective there. Otherwise, any physical damage will do against green Cactuars. So luckily, we get 2 groups of green Cactuars, and so what we can do is throw the shuriken again, use Windstorm, clean this group up real fast, and as long as you have a Doppelganger out, everything is going to be mimicked. So that's why it's really effective to always pay attention to that leaf icon that's on Yuffie's bar. Make sure that that Doppelganger is always out. It does take an extra second or two to cast a Doppelganger, but it is well worth the time investment. You see there, I ran away from Spine Splosion because I do not want to take any of that damage, and I also don't want to waste any time recovering from it. Okay, so here I threw the shuriken out, but I'm quickly retrieving it, and the reason for that is because I want to get in the middle of all these Magitoires, cast Windstorm, bring them all back into me. Unfortunately, I got hit by a Spine Splosion bomb. That's really unfortunate because it canceled a lot of the damage that I would have done alongside my Doppelganger. But luckily, I was able to clean it up there, get the rest of the Magitoires down, and then now we're basically just going to deal as much damage to this Gigantor as possible. It's not always a bad idea to use ninjutsu on a green Gigantor. The reason for that is because they move around so much, and chances are you're going to be missing a lot of your physical attacks. So when you cast Art of War, it also is cast by your doppelganger, so keep that in mind. For this wave here, I'm just attempting to build ATB. So what I did there was I just threw the shuriken and then was casting ninjutsu. Alongside the doppelganger, you do a lot of bonus damage with that because of all the AoE that's going on around the doppelganger. My doppelganger has gone away, so I need to bring it back out really quickly. However, I'm getting really good positioning on a lot of these waves just because of the way I'm ending certain waves. I'm ahead of their spawns, and I'm spawning right in the middle. So I'm keeping that in mind, and I'm just trying to do my best to manage all of the waves as best as possible. And that one felt like it was just like a good idea to wait on the doppelganger. Unfortunately, I had this one Cactuar move really far away. But luckily, the affinity switched right as I threw out the shuriken, and so I was able to cast a windstorm and clean a lot of that up. Now that I've maxed out ATB, I'm just casting Doppelganger really quick. Luckily, that tackle went right under me. Otherwise, I could have just dodged it in midair. Wouldn't have been a huge deal. Casting Windstorm managed to kill a lot of the remaining Magitoires, and it also opened up some easy damage on these regular Cactuars. Unfortunately, it counted as magic damage, so I didn't get the full effect on it, but still, any damage is good damage when you're transitioning a wave. It's not always easy to time that, and frankly, I didn't do it on purpose. Okay, so luckily this Gigantuar went down, and so I thought that my Doppelganger wasn't out, so I accidentally cast it again. What I'm really looking for there is to use Windstorm to clean up the mini Cactuars there, and then we're going to do our best to bring this down and build as much ATB as possible. If you're feeling confident in your ATB usage and your banishment is ready, feel free to cast it on this guy. You do want to make sure that it's not necessarily standing still, but it's in one clean location. I felt that I had plenty of time, though, and so I wasn't afraid to just kill this one manually and then move on. This way, in case the next wave was anything sort of crazy, I could quickly take care of it. Luckily, it's even more Giftuars for time, so right now we're just moving into the next wave. Going to cast Windstorm around Yuffie, get rid of all the Magitoires as quickly as possible, and then immediately begin attacking the Gladiatoires. And with the Doppelganger, we clear that out really, really quickly. Even though technically we're dealing magic damage to them, they're all up in the air, and so they're never moving around, so we're able to get all of that damage onto them and kill them alongside the Doppelganger. So here, this gold Gigantuar goes down, casts level 3 banishment. The Doppelganger also casts its own, and so we're then able to just clean it up with a couple of Art of Wars and then move on to the next wave. The target score, as with all of these hard mode challenges, is 6,000. Luckily, we are able to deal a lot of damage to those Cactuars in the beginning there. What I'm doing here now is trying to avoid all of the Spine Explosions that are coming out. Luckily, when you cast a Windstorm, it will still work as long as you are not knocked down. And so I was able to cast that Windstorm and then quickly get out of the Spine Explosion. Unfortunately, I did eat one, so that canceled it, but I was able to get a decent amount of damage going in the beginning. Spine Spew is really, really deadly. Any of these Cactuars can cast it. It can come out at any time. You got to pay very, very close attention to any abilities going off. If you do see Spine Spew happening, you want to get as far away from that particular Cactuar as possible, even if it means potentially running into a Spine Explosion. You're better off getting knocked away from that rather than eating multiple hits of Spine Spew. So just keep that in mind. Whenever you see Spine Spew, get as far away as possible. So again, we are well over the 6,000 score. We've still got plenty of time to go, so I'm really just cleaning this up very slowly. I'm not concerned about setting a high score. Like I mentioned during the Aerith trials, if you feel like you have gotten a high score and you're good to go, you've reached the max, just run away. There's no point in trying to set a super high score. You get the same result. Okay, for the fourth and final challenge, we are back with Aerith. And right away, we have a light Gigantuar, so go ahead and cast a Luminous Ward. However, keep in mind, this one can affinity change, so you got to be very, very careful. As you saw there, it changes to affinity. It went to a Darktuar. We were able to cast a Shadow Ward as it was falling, and then we were able to get back into it. We can use Soul Drain after that. However, Sorcerer's Storm will also work effectively against any Gigantuar that has a magical affinity. If it's just a gold or a physical Cactuar, then you do want to use Soul Drain instead, but Sorcerer's Storm will work very well against magical Cactuars of any size. All right, so for this wave here, I'm just running into the middle, using a Sorcerer's Storm on a Shadow Ward to get rid of the Dark Tuars as quickly as possible. I'm going to use another one just because there were some left. And then from here, I'm just backing away from these Spine Splosions, taking out the Gift Tuars, and then luckily the sort of bonus attack off of the auto attack that can sometimes happen clipped that Dark Tuar as I was still in the Shadow Ward. This Light Tuar has just created a mana ward, so I'm just chasing after it with physical damage, and then I am trying to thwack it with the rod. However, this isn't really going to work. Soul Drain, however, will finish it off, but just keep in mind that if that ever happens to you where you successfully take off a mana ward, but you're not able to kill it in 1 or 2 hits, you want to get back into a ward or try to move into one, either through a ward shift teleport. Pressing triangle will always bring you back to whatever ward you either most recently cast or is closest to you. Keep that in mind for regular battle as well. If you have multiple wards on the ground, you can teleport to really any of them, so just keep that in mind. So I'm cleaning up these Magic Tuars here. You see that we do have a Light Tuar, and now it's a Dark Tuar, so I was really just trying to clean up the smaller ones and not worry so much about the giant one. We're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to avoid the Spine Splosion and then cast a Sorcerer's Storm. That will not only kill the tiny one, but it'll deal a lot of damage to the Dark Gigantuar. Same thing here. That Dark Auto Attack dealt a ton of damage. That still counts as magic damage. If you can get it while they're lying down, feel free to charge up those auto attacks. They can be very effective, but don't bother with it if it's towards the end of that full pressure stun. Otherwise, they're just going to get up and run away, and it's not really going to do much for you. Auto-attacking these gold Cactuars is the way to go if you can manage it. However, if you're in a ward and they are near a ward, it's not always worth chasing them to deal physical damage. You may end up sort of screwing yourself a bit, and then you're just going to run low on time, and it's not really going to help. Pay very close attention when you have these really big waves. Spine Splosion is really, really tough to see because of all the particle effects going on. But just keep in mind, whenever you see something red appear on your screen, chances are it's an ability title and you need to get away from it. Luckily, those 2 Spine Splosions actually went over Aerith, and I was able to just kind of ignore them. I was in a really good spot there. That's not always the case. In fact, it's incredibly rare, as you saw there. Just ate one again. And the more of these you eat, the more it's going to drop your scores. You have to be very, very careful around them. If you are not feeling confident in your range as you're getting away from them, feel free to just sort of really get out of the way and come back. You're better off wasting a second or two to do that rather than losing a lot of time getting hit by them. Okay, so you always have to watch out for the Gigantuar's Body Slam. They have a huge AoE range, as you saw there. I just took a lot of unnecessary damage, and now it's going to take me even longer to kill everything because things ran around, they separated, and now we have to deal with everything as it's sort of scattered around. The Gigantuar Affinity Switch, this is really frustrating because we have Light Tuars and Dark Tuars running around still that we have to deal with. I'm going to Ward Shift here again. I really should have done it a lot earlier. As you saw there, it Affinity Switched again into a Body Slam. Luckily, though, it Body Slammed when there's nothing else running around, so we're okay to be able to kill everything. We do have a Dark Tuar, but we're going to kill that with sort of that bonus damage like I mentioned before. We do have a few Gift Tuars here. I did choose to hop back into the ward. This way I was able to deal with them from a distance. For these gold Cactuars, you can cast a Sorcerer's Storm just to sort of like clip them all. That does deal a decent amount of damage, even when you're not in a ward. It is a little risky, though. If it doesn't hit everything, that can be a bit of a waste of an ATB. So just keep that in mind. But with these magical Gigantuars, that charged auto attack is very, very effective. It is a little risky, though, because, again, if they're about to stand up, they can just run away from it. So just keep that in mind. We've got about 15 Spine Splosions coming in here, but we're very close to the target score of 6,000. I chose to ward shift there because my ward was somewhat far away, and I wanted to get back to dealing magic damage as quickly as possible. It also got me away from a lot of those Spine Splosions, which was really, really helpful there. Unfortunately, a lot of them just came out at once, so I was doing my best to hop around. I was able to avoid them without much of an issue. This mana ward here, all we got to do is just chase after him, deal one thwack of physical damage. It'll go away, and then we can finish it off, and then that is it. That is the fourth and final challenge. And then once you complete that, you'll get a trophy for the hotel, and you will be one step closer to that meta trophy for getting all of the trophies in the hotel. But that's it. I hope this has been helpful to you. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to help you out. If you're looking for more guides for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, please subscribe to the channel so you get alerted when new videos go live. If you're interested in supporting the channel monetarily, please consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below this video. You can also leave a super thanks by clicking the heart icon below this video. Don't forget to join the community Discord. The link for that is in the description below. As always, I'm SweetJohnnyCage. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.